Ahoy everyone, and welcome back to Comments Cited. Today we're going to be talking about Dev Diary number 4, Development and Buildings, and as always we're going to go through the actual Dev Diary word for word, just in a kind of read it podcast kind of style, and then we're going to do a discussion with Midgeman afterwards to see what it is all about. Greetings! This Dev Diary is all about your holdings on the map, baronies and counties, what they do for you, and what you could do with them. As seen in the map DD, baronies are now physically present on the map. A group of baronies make up a greater unit called a county. While certain things are still on a per barony level, such as buildings, two of the most important values you have to deal with on a per county basis, development and control. Development is the measurement of technological advancement and general infrastructure in a county. Development directly increases taxes and levies you get out of the holdings, and it also unlocks some other special options. Development increases very slowly across the duration of the game and radiates outwards from high development counties to those nearby. For example, Constantinople, aka the city of the world's desire, starts with a very high level of development. This will slowly spread outwards, reaching the most remote areas much slower than their Greek heartland. Naturally, there are other ways to increase your development, such as through the steward's increased development task, although this is a fairly slow process and usually only works in certain counties. Having terrain such as farmlands or floodplains in your counties will make them ideal candidates for development, and when you have gotten some level of development, you can sit back and enjoy as it slowly spreads throughout the rest of the realm. Control, on the other hand, directly represents the power you have over the county. This naturally decreases during sieges and by forcefully seizing territory, taking the place of the new admin modifiers from CK2. If you don't pace yourself and use your marshal to increase control in newly conquered territories, you might find yourself with a slew of useless land. This also increases the importance of keeping peasant rabble and similar nuisances out of your lands. Each county also has an opinion of their holder, referred to as the popular opinion. This represents the settlement of the local peasants and tends to decrease if you're not of the current culture or faith, promoting the use of local lords, vassals of the local culture/faith, to handle your territory for you, as converting it will take quite some time. Unhappy counties tend to cause problems down the line. More on that in another Dev Diary. Now on to the holdings themselves. Each county will have a certain amount of slots available for baronies, with some being constructed at the start and others not. The three core types of holdings remain unchanged. Castles, cities, and temples make up the majority of holdings on the map, each with their own main purpose. Castles provide levy and fortifications, cities provide taxes with a secondary focus on development, and temples provide an even mix of taxes and levies with a secondary focus on increasing control. This means that if you want a county to develop really fast, building many cities might be the thing for you. If you want a resilient domain, perhaps you prefer castles instead. Based on the terrain of the province, each holding has access to a number of buildings. Regular buildings primarily focus on increasing taxes and levies, with some secondary effects such as increasing fortifications or increasing supply. There are usually straight upgrades and are long-term investments that you should always consider, much like in our other games. To spice things up, we've also introduced the concept of Dutchy capital buildings. These buildings can only be built in the capital barony of any de jure duchy, limiting their availability across the map. To access them and have them be active, you need to hold the associated duchy title personally. This way you can't simply hoard counties in which you can build these special buildings. Just like in CK2, you will get severe penalties for holding too many duchies personally. The buildings themselves are very expensive, but come in many flavors, allowing you to tailor your experience. Military Academy's track of building, that is, increases the effectiveness of your knights and allows you to have more of them. Establishing marches will make the entire duchy more defensible, and siege workshops will increase the effectiveness of your trebuchets, and so on. We also have the concept of special buildings. These aim to represent historical buildings, both ancient and those built during the time period. Placed in predetermined baronies on the map, you have the usual suspects such as the pyramids or the Colosseum, along with more fringe or lesser-known constructions such as Offa's Dyke or the Buddhas of Bamiyan. Most of these will be possible to construct during the course of the game, such as the Tower of London or the Alhambra. All of these constructions provide unique and interesting bonuses, with some of them being represented with 3D models on the map.
Hello everybody and welcome to Comments Cited, our round table that's square-shaped podcasty thing with myself, Midgeman, and Benjamin Magnus Games. We are back talking about the CK3 Dev Diaries This time, Dev Diary 4, Development and Buildings.
This one's going to be a little bit shorter than the last one, most likely, because we yammered on for damn close to an hour last time, and we've got a little bit of a shorter development diary today. So, like, my total video from Dev Diary number 3 ended up being like 50-something minutes long between the intro, me reading it out, and then the discussion afterwards. So hopefully we'll keep this one a little more condensed. But yes, talking about the development and buildings, mostly buildings, because the development they mentioned was basically like 2 lines. And what I gathered from that was, hey, you remember development from EU4? We're kind of mashing that together with tech spread rate, and there you go.
Yeah, it's the development aspect of CK3 apparently is going to work essentially like institutions in EU4 if you're an EU4 player. So you'll get like a development focus from your steward that you can set them doing something, and they will help a generation of a percentile going up, and the development of your province that you're developing will get better, and then that will spread to other provinces, so you don't need to dev every single province.
It definitely seemed like a combination of the technology from CK2 and then development in the institution spread from EU4.
Yeah.
Just kind of all mangled together. I feel like it's not going to be as complicated as that might sound in practice, because it's not like in EU4 where there's dev for like multiple varieties. In the picture we have for the Earldom of Thamond here, it just says development 2, so it seems like it's a much simpler concept.
Yeah.
But I'm not exactly clear on what it means, because it shows in the picture development is just 2, but then later on, I'm pretty sure in here, development directly increases taxes and levies you get from holding, and it also unlocks other special options. It says taxes and levies. In my mind, I would normally go to, hey, there'd be one side for taxes and one side for levies, but the picture only shows the one item there. So it's probably just flat, everything goes, like, higher number is better.
Yeah, I'm guessing it works like a multiplier is what I'm guessing. Like, each point is like times 5% or something of the sort. We haven't got the actual stats. So.
Pretty simply, it spreads from high dev areas to low dev areas based on the differential between the two. Gives an example here of Constantinople, spreading that outwards. What it did mention, though, and what I thought was interesting, is in EU4, you got an institution. You could kind of try to prevent it from getting to your enemies a little bit, because a lot of it is like if you're touching a friendly province, so you try to ruin relations with people you don't want it to go to. This one does specifically mention it going to your borders and not outside.
Yeah.
Which I did kind of like, because that means you could kind of like hold in that technology bonus and prevent it from getting outside. I think that's probably for the best too, because you're looking at the Byzantine Empire, and in CK2, north of the Byzantine Empire is just either tribal or nomadic lands. It would feel a little weird if that high tech got to the border of the Byzantine Empire and then you just had really high tech nomads up there.
Well, development isn't just tech, it's also like infrastructure and stuff. So for me, that makes sense partially. Also, though, I think infrastructure naturally increases with like trade, for example. So like naturally roads don't end at borders, like they continue to the next trade destination. So I think I don't know how they're going to do it, but I think they should have like almost accidental spread because of trade. Like if there's good relations, like in EU4, if you've got good relations with someone, it allows institutions through the border, that kind of thing. Just because being able just to essentially build tool high tech as someone, say like the Byzantines, who are massive, and
I don't know if you could call the Byzantines tall when they start out as a giant empire.
Yeah, I suppose. But I'm saying you could just stay in Greece, build them massively, and then no one would be able to stop you. Or even in England. Like, I still think that there should be a sort of ebb and flow a little bit somewhere. Like, they shouldn't be half-fixed.
see it spreading through trade routes and things like that if the Silk Road system that we have in the game right now was embellished a little bit, so it wasn't just a static, this is where the line goes and this is exactly where the trade posts were. If it was more of a dynamic system that could ebb and flow and technology could pass down the Silk Road and through trade routes dynamically, I think that'd be a great idea.
Yeah. Also, development. There was something else on it. Yes, it mentions how certain terrain types are better for development in terms of.
True.
So if you've got a farmland province, it would be far better for development than what I'm guessing, a mountain province, which is, again, following along the lines of EU4 and what naturally makes sense. Highly developed lands, taking historical UK as an example, because that seems to be where they focus a lot on the Dev Diaries. The areas of high populace in the medieval era was the farming communities of the UK. So, yeah, it makes sense that that's the case, and I do like that they're still thinking about that as an effector. Like, again, it's going to make choosing what counties you can control probably better for you, because in previous Dev Diaries we've mentioned how there's strategic locations, but there's also farmlands will be the higher money generating, and this is just going further in depth of that. So how choosing your domain essentially is going to have benefits and flaws.
That also brings us to control, which is new. That is, if we look at the Earldom of Themond, we've got control right here at the top. It definitely looks like it's going to be a range from 0 to 100, which makes sense. That's a pretty standard paradox trope there. And it's exactly what it sounds. It is your level of, like, boots on the neck of people in that province.
Yeah.
Specifically makes note that new conquered land you'll have very little control over and will provide next to nothing. And how vassal management could be more in-depth than in the past. My normal theme of vassal management in the past when I was conquering land was just like, all right, I'm going to put someone, I'm going to search for my religion, my culture, then sort by men, if it's not late game and I have let women in charge. Don't have a current title, and then sort by either stewardship if I want them to convert the culture, or learning if I want them to convert the religion, and just pick the best candidate and throw them in there. In this one, it seems like it makes very specific mention that keeping vassals, vassal lords that are native to these new lands you captured might be very beneficial to maintaining control over that land and making it a viable source of income and levies, so that you would want to put someone of the same religion as the county and the same culture as the county just to keep the people happy. And then you just kind of, it seems like it's another level of rushing nesting dolls of vassal management to me. Yeah. There's those levies down there and the local nobles that are going to be pissy because you're different and came in and conquered them. But you can focus on that one character, make him happy, and he'll make them happy.
Yeah, it also gives another aspect of, if you're William the Conqueror, it might be worth you now changing to the local culture to appease this control mechanic. And I do like this control mechanic because the thing with CK2 is rebels, heretics, anything, all the modifiers for them where they spawn is kind of hidden. So they can just appear randomly, like a random event, which these games do have, but other Paradox games, Victoria 2, EU4, you can directly track, like, peasant revolts and plan for them, and, like, because historically, even in the medieval period, people got murmurs that there was going to be a rebellion. In CK2, that's not emulated, really. It just happens. And I like the fact that you can now sort of stomp them without having to raise levy and send an army, that you can kind of go, no, I want to make sure that I've got control of these provinces. I want this dominion to be under my authority and controlled, rather than, oh god, I'm now a massive empire, and a random peasant revolt has risen in Aquitaine while I'm fighting zealots in Saxony. Like, it's a more of a set thing for this peasant happiness, which is represented now in a thing called popular opinion. So counties have popular opinion. This is the sentiment of the local peasants, and that will increase or decrease depending on essentially the same things that that affect control. So if you're the same religion, if you're the same culture, if you're the what was the other thing? Does it say development and everything? Okay, no, it was just saying how different cultures and different faith is going to be problematic, and converting them will take some time, so they're going to cause issues and such.
It kind of reminds me of Iun 4 when you're picking ideas and you basically decide if I want to go religious or humanist. Do I want to stomp on the peasants and force them into compliance, or do I want to be nice? Do I want to appoint that Irish count and allow him to kind of deal with the problem for me and just kind of, mete out the issues for someone else to deal with? Forgive me, I've got a dog over here now.
It's fine. She's fine, so it's all okay. But that's the main sort of section about development, I guess. That would be the subsection.
There's not much to go on there. It's just, hey, development. It's basically stuff we already know how to use, and now it's in this game.
But it is giving us a good answer of how that's going to work, and I'm kind of happy with how that's going to work, because I think, strangely, the sort of tech system of EU4 is one of EU4's like better mechanics. Like, it's one of the ones that you don't think it needs balancing every now and then, but the actual core of how it works doesn't really, like, I'm now so used to playing EU4 with that, it's like I can't see how this would work otherwise. Like, so I like the fact that that's coming into CK3, because
back in my day we had tech groups in EU4 and we didn't really like that too much. No.
Yeah. Teching. Oh yeah, I remember the tech groups. But for example, I've just done a CK2 game where I was playing as Charlemagne, and I made the Holy Roman Empire, and I wanted to make it primogeniture, and I had to get to legalism 5, and the tech system in CK2 isn't the most clear on how to gain tech points and develop those techs, but I did end up going 200 and something % ahead of time and getting legalism 5 in the year 900. But at the same time, having this more what seems to be more of a clear path that will set up for that element. It's like having a system that we can understand rather than one that's a bit more amorphous, which CK2 currently has.
Well, let's move on. We've got a little bit of building stuff in here. Not too much knowledge that we wouldn't have already had. Castles, cities, temples, same as in CK2. Some counties are full at the start. Some have empty holding slots that you can build a floor city or a temple into. We do have a little bit of new building information here. It seems pretty standard. Prices, how long it's going to take to construct. You can see walls and towers. It seems to me like walls and towers, farms and fields, pastoral lands, that's a category. And then bastions and curtain walls is the actual building, because it makes mention of building buildings and then direct upgrades to those buildings down the line. So there'll probably be bastions and curtain walls, and then like towers or portcullis. That adds those on there. Same with like fields and farms here. Crop fields. So we're gonna make field.
Yeah.
There we go. I'm a little confused how it's gonna cost the exact same amount of money as a building an entire wall around a city in the exact same amount of time, but gotta balance the game some way.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, that works. If you're building multiple crop fields throughout a county, I'd say that costs the same much as a bastion and a wall
this
on
is
one
before we
castle.
deforested the planet, so we got some work to do there.
Oh, yeah. The county I'm in, known as the Garden of England, wasn't always all farmlands. No. This was one of the biggest forests in the entire.
Well, I mean, you guys had to cut down all of your trees to build ships. Come on.
Yeah, that's very true. And that happened a lot around here. Yeah, and I like that it's more of a they've kind of named the upgrade system essentially that we already have in CK2. Like if you open a building or a holding, the buildings are just barracks 4, barracks 5. I like that we've got this is the actual almost technological the technological development flavor of it. It's like time is progressing. We've now got crop rotation that we're implementing, like that sort of thing.
What we do have as new though is this is something I'm interested in, is the Dutchie Buildings, because I feel like in relation to some of the stuff we talked about in the past and other Dev Diaries, it seems that they're trying to make duchies kind of an administrative hub.
Yeah.
Which I like, because historically that is
the case.
Pretty accurate, is that the duchy was a very important administrative hub and kind of title level.
Yeah, and I am interested by some of these duchy buildings. Namely,
well, what we've got here, we've got again, we've got categories, and then the building there, military academies, and then military schools, army maintenance, number of knights +2, knight effectiveness +20. I think that one in particular is the one that I'm looking at the most, because can you just stack knights? You just take just a legion of knights into battle? Because that sounds fun. Although, of course, you got to have... Excuse you, Penny. I don't know if you just heard that, but Penny just burped.
Oh, no, I didn't hear that, but...
being able to stack a bunch of very effective knights. But, of course, then you're going to have to stack your court with very, professional soldiers. I think it'd be a little funny if you built up your capital duchies to have just huge number of knights to lead your army, and then after, like, the Black Death runs through and there's nothing but derps left.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what the French did. That was the French tactic. That
would be something an Englishman would say.
No. It's what I mean. Like, if we're talking 1300s period, France's tactic for military thing was a huge core of heavily armed cavalry, like knights. Like, the entire army, 6,000 cavalrymen, like, that would just plow into battle. So that is the very sort of... and all of them were like nobles. It's the same with the Winged Hussars with Poland, how it's just like a noble battalion.
Those weren't nobles. That was an effective fighting force of like yeomans. Some of them, there were of course there were nobles in there, but it was not exactly the same thing. But as a whole, I have to defend them as the most effective military organization in the world throughout all of history, obviously.
Oh, I mean,
take your Welsh longbow and shove it.
Well, Welsh longbowmen, Janissaries were pretty good as well. Just to throw a bit of an Ottoman spiel in there.
The Battle of Vienna begs to differ.
Oh yes, that.
Anywho,
history.
Moving on. We've also got marches here. Defender advantage +2. That's something that goes back to last week's, where you get advantage based on various modifiers. There's a modifier right there. Fighting in someone's duchy. I'm assuming that the owner of it would get the advantage there, unless you had sieged down a barony already.
Yeah, I'm the one thing that kind of raises the question of who gets these benefits. Is it just the Duke, or does the King also get the benefits?
I would imagine it would be just the Duke in this case, because it does make mention of the idea in this Dev Diary. It makes brief mention of the idea of just trying to have a lot of duchies, stacking all those modifiers into all of your land, and that might not being the most effective way of going about it. I would imagine that there might be like if you look at older Paradox games like Hearts of Iron 3, most people probably won't even understand what I'm talking about. The Order of Battle system. There is a diminishing returns from the top all the way down. I could definitely see that being a feasible strategy of diminishing returns, but just the other way, from the bottom going on up to top. It was like in Hearts of Iron 3, if you have, say, plus 10% attack, and it's a division leader, he'll get that full bonus. If it's a core leader, it'll be a 5% bonus to everybody under him. And then if it's an army leader, it'll be a 2.5% bonus to everybody under him. And then if it's like an army group commander, it'll be a 1% bonus over him. So it kind of trickles down, but it's always most effective to have the best people at the top. I could see that being a thing there. I think it's probably not going to be that way, though. I think it's an option, but I think it'll probably just be for the owner of that duchy, most likely.
Yeah, or maybe a bit of half and half. If it's a war where it's the say we're in a kingdom and there's a duke that's on the border and their lands has one of these. If it's kingdom versus kingdom, I think the kingdom would get the defender bonus because it makes sense because it's allied territory. However, if it was internal, it would go to the duke, like sort of if it was an internal ducal war or ducal king war sort of thing. I'm guessing it would have to depend on what the war is, essentially.
It's a little ambiguous. We don't have the information on it. The only thing I worry about, and why I think maybe it'd be a kind of diminishing return situation going up to the top, is that I feel like it'd be way too easy to stack it. Like if every dukedom got to add that +2, let's say it's defender advantage +2 for, let's say, 5 levels, so that's defender advantage +10, and you had fucking 10 duchies in your kingdom, and all 10 of those were built up in your land, and you just had defender advantage +100, you'd be unassailable.
I don't think it would affect every province. I think it's only when you're in the duchy, that sort of thing. But I'm just wondering who gets the modifiers when is more the crux of it. But it would make sense, for example, if you are a king, to have your outer, like the duchies that are on the outside of the empire, you spend some money and go, hey, I want strategic marches here because I don't want them coming through the Ardennes at me. Sticking with France as my example today, apparently.
It's a very Romanesque way of looking at that, where in the height of the Roman Empire, there were 2 levels of provinces, basically. One's on the outside, which had military legions stationed in them, and then the soft nougat on the inside, which were just economic hubs.
Yeah. And I'd like to see if you could deconstruct these as well. I'd like to know if you can get rid of them.
That's something that's never really been available in CK2. The only way to destroy things is if in later patches where raiders can sometimes destroy buildings.
Yeah. I would quite like the ability to destroy buildings, especially if we've got these marches as a thing, because I would like to roll my borders out with borders, because that's what the Romans did, it's what Charlemagne did. It's a historical fact that they moved their fort line essentially as they secured more territory.
Or on the other side of things, maybe later we get tribals or nomads and do it from the other way, where history repeats itself and civilization collapses and just gets charred to rubble.
Yeah.
Kind of like, nobody freaking ever plays, unless they're going for an achievement, like the steppe nomads or the horsemen in EU4. But there's the mechanic in that where you burn down enemy territory and you get diminishing returns on... Well, it's actually, you burn down friendly territory, land you've captured, and you get monarch points back from it. Love to be able to just be like, okay, well, this castle, don't need that anymore, burn it to the ground, give me 500 ducats.
Yeah, also, like, there's going to be elements where you take over land, and what they've got there, you like, I don't like this. This is not what I want.
Stellaris.
Yeah, I want to get rid of some.
The AI did what with this planet?
Sorry, I've just conquered this new border territory, and it's got a siege workshop here, but it's in a prime location to be taken again. No, I want strategic marches, or vice versa. It's like, I've finally got control of this duchy below the capital in the heartland of my empire. It does not need strategic defense. I want a military academy here to make the benefit of, I want more knights. I need army maintenance and more knight effective for the core center lands, which are producing maybe more knights.
And the last thing we got on our dev diary here is basically tacit confirmation that we have great works as well.
Yes, yeah. Whether they are like they've been described as special buildings. I don't know if they're going to be Dutchie Buildings as constructs, or if there is going to be like another great work section. But I do like some of the examples they've given as well. There's some more historically.
I think it's. I don't think they're exactly going to be great works. I think they're if my understanding would probably be because it does say that they're placed in predetermined baronies on the map. That in EU4 CK2 right now, there's great works that are there at the start of the game. The Mausoleum of Halicarnassus, the Palace of Wisdom, the Pyramids of Giza, and things like that. Those exist at the start of the game, and then you could build your own later. I would love it if they kind of split that and gave it a little more differentiation there, where there was these predetermined ones, which we know we're going to have, like the pyramids and the Colosseum and things like that. But if there was also a different category of great work that you could build, like if you could, do your own kind of great pyramids of Giza or Colosseum
like
or something
work
like that. That'd be
and
great.
Wonders, essentially, is the thing. And I do like that.
Yeah,
there's
that's a good way of looking
historic
at it.
examples of building here, though, like the Tower of London. The Tower of London has a huge history in the UK, and it was built by William the Conqueror to say, stop revolting, stop being angry peasants. I'm watching at all times. Because in the UK we didn't have stone castles essentially before then. We had stone walls and like wooden or palaces, or no big behemoth castles as everyone knows them. That was a Norman product brought over by the Norman conquest. So I like the fact that you could invade the land and then I'm putting my architecture here. Screw you guys. Oh, go away, Anglo-Saxons. This is Norman now. Or but like the other examples here, like Offa's Dyke is like apparently a construction which is a really interesting, which is the Kingdom of Mercia in Middle Ages.
I haven't Googled that one yet, so you're gonna have to fill me in.
Offa's Dyke is King Offa, the most famous Mercian king, which is like Middle England, Viking era. Basically, it's a massive earthwork that stretched the length of the Mercian kingdom with Wales, because Wales kept raiding them. So it's a big ditch to put Welsh people in, essentially. It's how that works. It's a massive earthwork fortification that went along the length.
It's a
Mercia.
Giant ditch to roll the Welsh into.
So it's a hill on the English side and a ditch on the Welsh side. So, but then again, I don't have like any stats of how effective that was. Wales is a pretty hilly place. I think they'd get used to that sort of thing. There's a new hill here. But yeah, no, so I like the idea that they've got essentially historical, lesser known but wonders that were constructed in the CK2 period being looked at. Because I would like to have done that in CK2. I would like to go, I want to build this very famous castle because I started before the start date, so it's not there, sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So I like that that's going to be a thing. I also want to know if they'll have bonuses and whatnot. So is Hadrian's Wall gonna have bonuses by being there?
I still can't believe Hadrian's Wall is not in CK2.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just because it was still used as a border for a long time, diplomatically.
Yeah, it was there until the British decided to turn it into a road.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, but there's some little things like the White Tower, the Tower of London. What you could do with that is great, because I watched recently a video on the history.
Plot power defense.
Yeah, plot power defense. I want to shove my brother's children in this so they don't.
I can't wait till we get a dev diary on intrigue, because we've gotten through 4 of these so far, and basically what I've seen so far is we have this mechanic that we know works. Let's take it and expand on it. And I'm not as well. I've been around for some shady Paradox launches in my time so far, and I'm an ornery bastard, and I'm a skeptic. and I don't have faith in these launches anymore. But
welcome to the
in
Ben
terms
is a
of what I'm
skeptic portion
seeing
of the
this
podcast.
time around, and what I've seen in the past from being around for the early Hoi 4 stuff and the early Stellaris stuff and all the Imperator stuff, I'm not as worried about this one because the stuff that we're getting in Dev Diary 1, 2, 3, and 4 right off the bat seems really solid.
Yeah. And it's what they've done is we've listened to how you play the game and we're making that game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, going back, it was a Dev Diary 2 where they mentioned about the Dynasties and how it's like you get points essentially by putting people on other thrones, not necessarily like playing as them, but having dynasties on other kingdoms' thrones, like elsewhere, and that's a way to play the game. Where it did like nothing in CK2, it's now you can use it
outside of role playing your guys. It'd be like, okay, I just want to see that little blood drop on everybody.
Yeah, but I am very excited. This Dev Diary has been just almost telling us what we already know and how they've kind of cleaned it up and made it better, or tried to. We'll see when we play it. We can't tell if it's better or worse, but I'm confident that it makes sense. Is the way I'll put it.
Yeah, I think it logically makes sense expanding from what we have into something grander. Now, I'd like to see what the full list of buildings looks like. You can clearly see that in one of these pictures, construct new buildings. We can see 1, 2, 3, 4. But on the right side, you can see a tiny little scroll icon, which makes it look like there's a whole huge list that goes way down farther. And on the other one, to construct new Dutchie buildings, it just gets fucking cut off like halfway through Royal Armories.
Yeah.
So we know there's more in there. I just want to see what those are. That's the only thing I kind of worry about is streamlining. That to me, the word streamlining is just the death knell of a strategy game. Like, okay, we've got these complex items. Let's just sand off all the rough edges and right down into a nice little deep package that everybody can easily understand and give them that. And so I worry about streamlining, but it seems like there's more than they're giving us. So
yeah, and you talk about streamlining, but I think half the things we've had Dev Diaries on for right now are things in CK2 that have like no information on. Like they're actually, although it looks like it's streamlining, they're actually giving us a little bit more like than what we've had. Like if we're talking about now that we've got this whole different buildings are going to essentially be able to be built in other places, and there's now a strategic thing to building rather than every castle has the same level of upgrades, and depending on how much money you funnel into it, the better you are.
I've got 7 holdings in my capital here. Well, that's 5 baronies.
Yeah, I'm going to make more castles and more castles.
Or a castle on my castle.
Or if you're a trade republic, how many paintings can I put up in my house? That's essentially
I've played a trade republic in so long.
I dipped into one. I was like, oh boy, I forgot. It's just like, I've got copious amounts of money, and money is everything. Let's show my opulence by putting it in an off-map holding. Like, yeah, there's like one thing I am interested to see. If we go back up to the first image that they give this in this, there seems to be like building slots in a holding that look relatively limited. Whereas in CK2,
yeah, I noticed that too.
In CK2, you can build anything anywhere except for your cultural retinue's building. That's because that's the only thing that you can like build that's different. Whereas this, it seems like you have to pick and choose. I'm not necessarily against that idea because it's town planning a bit more, but
it
depends on. We're going to bring back to essentially what we talked about at the end of the last one, which is why we went on tangent for so long, so we'll try not to cut it into it too much, but it's the meta. It depends on what becomes the building meta, if there's a meta to it. If like, okay, because I'm just using the examples what we've got here. Walls and Bastions gives you 150 garrison and a bit of income and a fort level. So everyone's going to want to build that up because that's your defense and money and men. And then you've got things like crop fields. They give you a bit of income. But pastures give you levies and income. Well, that's 2 things. That's definitely getting a better priority. Like, or there's barracks. because you're limited of slots, you want things that do as many things as possible, slightly less, rather than streamlining one thing, essentially, and then have like an overarching thing if you've got loads of counties. But I don't know.
It's a balance.
Yeah, there's going to be a balancing act with it.
I hate it when things boil down to a meta, and that then 90% of the content left in there gets completely disused because it's completely unbalanced, and one thing is way more powerful than something else, or well, that's basically it. I mean, if you go look at Hearts of Iron 4, that game is all about the meta, and every single time they would patch it, it never really balanced out. It would just swing wildly from one meta to the next meta. Submarines were OP as shit for the longest time, so no one built anything but submarines. When the game first came out, aircraft carriers were useless.
Yep.
So you just built battleships. Then it was destroyers were OP. Then it was light cruisers were OP. And you just have these massive fleets of hundreds of destroyers and hundreds of light cruisers. And it would just swing wildly from one side to the other. I'm less worried about it in this, because you're not building individual military units. But, it looks like, was there 5 building slots, it looked like? 1, 2, 3. It looked like there were 5, and when this particular one had 2 available. I'm seeing fort level 2 and 2 slots with pluses on them, so I'm wondering if that's linked to your fort level, or like the level of the castle. I'm perfectly okay with you having a barony that specializes in defense that you put into a fucking choke point, or a barony that focuses on levies.
Oh, yeah.
Or a barony that focuses on taxes or something like that. I think that's pretty cool, but you have to have a pretty good sized list of things to make sure that there's enough options to do, and you have to balance it right so that there's not just those 5 things that everybody builds and the other 25 nobody touches.
Yeah.
That's it. But that's a balancing act. That's an issue for Q&A, Paradox.
Oh, dude, yeah. Or the people who decide the outcomes of the Q&A results. Either way.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
or those, or anything. But yeah, but that's the thing. That is just a small gripe on the end of this. Everything else seems, still excited.
Seems good.
Still gonna secretly hope it's gonna be amazing.
There is one thing I just noticed, and I'm not sure if I'm just misinterpreting it. So, first picture, Earldom of Thumond, under the absolutely hideous character portrait of whoever this guy is. I see a little icon of a castle, a little icon of a house, which I'm assuming is a city, little icon of what looks like a church, and then a blank spot.
Yeah.
Is that suggesting that there are 4 holdings?
Yes, I think so.
Available here, and we've already have a castle, a city, and a barony, and then an empty slot. Is that what that is?
Yeah, I think that's what that's saying.
Okay.
And
with what I was thinking there, I was like, is there a 4th holding type coming, or is that just an empty slot?
There might be. We don't know that yet, but yeah, I think that's an empty slot. That looks like a spacebar icon. That's what that looks like.
Yeah, it probably is.
It's just like, I don't remember there being a ditch in Limerick in Ireland as like a famous ditch somewhere or whatever that. That's I think
famous ditch to throw the Protestant Irish in.
Not in this period. Protestantism's
a little early.
Yeah, this is. But yeah, this seems to be. I do like that the de jure hierarchy is like on the screen. There's not like a tick button to make sure that you can see it.
Yeah. As long as like I think there's a balance there. I know I complained in one of my, I think it was in the first one or the second one, that the Paradox games try to cram too much 3D information on the map, and I think it tends to make it look cluttered. But I think there is room to keep things in contextual menus, but also put the information on the map. But again, that's just a balancing act.
Interesting as well, with going back to that de jure hierarchy thing. So this character owns the duchy, because the duchy's on his flag in his character entry. And if you look at the de jure section, the duchy isn't highlighted. So if it's not got this like orange ring around it, does that mean it's owned? Essentially, is what I'm reading from this. Because you've got the duchy, because it'd be the Duchy of Desmond, and then you've got Ireland, and then the Empire of Britannia. And those two have like a red ring around them. So does that mean not created? And then the Duchy has no ring around it. So does that mean owned? Have we just?
I don't know.
Have we just gained a bit of insight there that they haven't?
Yeah,
spoken
well,
about?
and you can definitely tell which one is which because there's
Yeah.
like progressively more interesting looking crowns on the top of the
Yeah.
the shield there.
You can tell that it's Empire. Empire.
My
Kingdom,
guess is
Duchy.
the red border would probably means doesn't exist.
Yeah. Does that mean we're gonna get green borders for exist but not owned, or are we gonna get?
That would be nice, just a little
Yeah.
visual indicator.
It really would. And I like.
Because right now, the way you figure out information about holdings that you don't personally control, it's just so many clicks to get. And I've been playing my Zoroastrians into Persia run, and to create an empire, you need 80% de jure land in Persia's 90 counties. So it's these huge quantities of land that I've been needing to grab, and people in chat keep wanting to see how close are you now, how close are you now. Every single time I have to click, all right, click on a county. Click on the shield, then click on de jure, and click on the Persian Empire, then hold over the create button and wait for the contextual menu to pop up. It's just like click. Okay, I'm there. If I didn't personally know how to do that information, that would be hard information to find if you didn't already know exactly where it was. That kind of like contextual menu and contextual menu and contextual menu and contextual menu thing, that is information that they could definitely look like it could be really spread out evenly there. And easy to get to rather than all of those clicks and menus and tick boxes and things like that.
There's something I've seen personally that I don't think they've shown us in any Dev Diaries yet. And the way that I could see it working with this is their new tooltip system. They have a tooltip system now that has essentially...
It's like an RPG tooltip system.
Yes, so you hover over it, it comes up. But then it has like highlighted sections, which you can hover over again and it expands it even further, or you can click it and it opens up a
Crusaderpedia.
It's Crusaderpedia. I can't remember what it's called. I know the dev that made it as well. It was like it's his pet project. He loves it. But it's one of those things of I can see that all that information that they kind of almost hid in CK2 that had like this breakdown. Even if it's not like directly shown at all times on there, just a hover over is going to be so much easier in CK3 than it was in CK2. I also really hope that they don't hide income breakdowns. That's the CK2. Trying to find your income breakdown is like one of the hardest things to do, unless you know where you're looking.
Unless you
have
know
your coins
that's a
coming
lot
at
of
the
things in
top.
CK2.
Yeah, there's the coins thing at the top, and it tells you how much monthly. But if you want to know where that's all coming from and why you suddenly plunged into debt, you have to go to your title, and then it's on the title screen. Weirdly, and then even so, that's just for that title's land. So if you've got multiple kingdoms, you have to go to the other title to see it. I believe. I think so.
I don't remember off the top of my head now.
Yeah.
Have to go check. But
I haven't
think
been a
we've
dual
covered,
king without being an emperor for a while. So, yeah. But I think we've covered everything.
Covered mostly everything.
I like that we said this was going to be shorter, and this one's already at 43 minutes currently for me recording.
Son of a bitch. Anywho, why don't we wrap it up then?
Yeah, so thank you to Ben for joining me for this. Again, if you want to see us do more of these, do let us know in the comments down below. And if you would like to see us bring some guests into it, also let us know. And why not give us suggestions of who? Who would you like to see? Who would you like us to approach?
We should bring Rose into this. Rose recently became an absolute master of eugenics.
Oh yeah, no. Well, if we get maybe we like try to hit her up for a eugenics program dev diary if there is one.
just cut it off right there. I'm gonna go over to Midge's Discord right now. Add that into the Midge says section.
Oh, go for it.
Let's hit her up for some eugenics.
Yes, hit the pregnant woman up for eugenics. Definitely. That's what.
Hey, she popped into my CK2 stream the other day, and we were talking about trying to breed like bloodlines together, and then when I ended my stream, I had a wall of text from Rose going, "Yeah, this is exactly how I do it. I got really good. I got 8 bloodlines on this character."
Oh wow, wow. That's okay. Anyway, we'll leave it here for this week. we will see you probably next week for the next Dev Diary, if there is one next week. The Dev Diaries will probably stop over Christmas at some point, though.
I'm sure they will. The Swedes take some long vacations.
Paradox takes some long vacations. They have some really... I mean, they've got good vacation time as a company, but I think that's also because half of their devs are from around the world as well, so they all need to fly to different countries for Christmas, etc. But yeah, so we'll be back for the next one. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. This is not episode 2 for Ben of Comet Sighted, but this is the second joint episode of Comet Sighted.
Yes, I'm doing one episode per Dev Diary, but this is the second together.
Yeah, so we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.